thank you for your cooperation.
Sorry, honey. Looks like this is your ride.
Glasgow has its history of colourful characters, romanticised legends of those days long gone by, socialist dreamers, architects and lunatics, but none can compare with Big Jake, the Glaswegian private eye. Ex-Detective Sergeant Jack McGillicuddy was a force to be reckoned with out upon the streets, the scourge of Glasgow's criminal fraternity, who trembled at the sound of the pounding of his feet. But you know, he wasn't all that tall. In fact, he was really quite diminutive. But throughout the city centre, he was known as Big Jake. But because he had a limp, he was also known as the Hobbling Goblin. But if you said it to his face, it would be the last sound you'd ever make. Jake was doing his rounds early on a Friday evening, searching through the bars that Mick McAllister frequented. McAllister was drinking down in the Scotia bar with a young lady that no one owned, but who could be very easily rented. McAllister was Big Jake's grasser source of information, a greasy wee toe rag who could crawl under a snake. But he had some information concerning Jake's investigations of some local politicians who were definitely on the take. The door flew open. Big Jake entered. The clock stopped ticking, and the budgie died. The barman stabbed himself just to save time, and the people who were stoned there became totally petrified. There were people swallowing lumps of dope and stuffing it into crevices. People checking their watches saying, "Oh, time for me to go." The folk singer in the corner changed from 4/4 time to rumba. It was a catchy little number, Ravel's Itchy Bolero. As Jake hobbled down the doorway, the motley crowd assembled, just parted like the waters of the biblical Red Sea. There was an unearthly silence as McAllister shouted, "It's the Hobbling Goblin, eh, wee man? Are you looking for me?" Grown men fainted, pregnant women had contractions. Jake's reactions were legendary, violent and immediate. "You're an idiot, son, but stupidity's no excuse. Here's 10 pence, phone an ambulance, I'm gonna cook your fucking goose." Faithful to his word, Jake flew across the table, and in a hurricane of violence, McAllister hit the floor. As Jake knelt upon his windpipe, McAllister retaliated, and his young lady friend joined in to try and even up the score. The hooker hooked McGillicuddy. He was quite astonished, but being a gentleman, he raised his hat before he gubbed her with a chair. A woman who was sitting there, incensed at this brutality, led a battle charge of outraged women towards the battling pair. Some men shouted, "Let them fight it out." Arguments ensued. Pints were spilled and soon a battle was in progress. The fight spilled out onto Stockwell Street. A bus queue there joined in. They didn't have a reason. They in fact could not care less. Many years of pent-up tension and frustration had erupted. Simultaneously, it seems, everybody had had enough. And from nearby pubs and houses, the battle ranks were swollen. By the time the police arrived, things were looking pretty rough. Now the police took a beating, so they called for reinforcements. By this time the fight had spread to over 15 city blocks, and in less than 40 minutes it reached the Glasgow city limits. News at 10 called it the Battle of the Inner City Jocks. The government called the army in, but buses came from Aberdeen, Edinburgh, Pittenweem, Stirling, even Crail. The fight extended north and south, advertised by word of mouth. They even fought in hospitals, in bingo halls and in jails. For 15 days and nights, it was a monumental fight. The biggest pub fight that the world had ever seen. They dropped in paratroops, commandos in small groups, and eventually 12 battalions of American Marines. The fighting was contagious. Privates, corporals, even majors soon joined the fight's undisciplined elations. Peace protesters, child molesters, even high finance investors all get drunk and exercise their aggravations. The United Nations forces arrived to try and save the peace. A America stepped in, but not just to save the oil. Jeffrey Archer ran a concert for the Balmoral refugees, cause by this time even they were fighting in this bloody battle royal. Prince Charles and his two brothers and the Buckingham Palace guards were taking on all comers down in the Strand, standing on top of the royal coach shouting, "Come into one, you bastards," with a bottle of champagne in either hand. In compliance with EEC policy, the fighting spread to Europe, and continental drinkers soon joined the fray. Then China, Africa, Asia and America were all fighting by the 22nd day. The entire world gets steaming drunk. The White House and the Vatican, parliaments and congresses fought until they dropped. And after 28 days of fighting, all the drink supplies were finished. And as suddenly as it had started, all the drunken fighting stopped. The entire human race had a hangover for a week. No one went to work, so everybody got fired. 50 billion unemployed, but not one bugger got annoyed. At last our contract of employment had expired, and our aggression totally spent. We got rid of the governments, stopped the wars, banned the bomb, and saved the whale. Wealth was equally distributed, and the world was unpolluted, ever after like a children's fairy tale. Many years have passed since then, but I still remember when. It all started in the Scotia bar that night, when Jake the Goblin, Mick the Grass, and the hooker with no name, the unholy trinity that started that great fight. Yes, they've gone down in history, become a legend, I suppose, and each year an anniversary banner is unfurled, and pilgrims come from near and far to the famous Scotia bar to commemorate the pub fight that saved the entire world. But I can hear you say, what happened to Big Jake since that night so long ago? Did he get the recognition that he deserved? No, no. See, just like you and me, Jake still stands eternally in the Scotia bar, still waiting to be served.
Hey, excuse me, could I have a pint of lager here? Hey, am I invisible or something? Hey, pint of lager. Jesus Christ.